Sara, compulsive eater. That's my middle name, but I go by it a lot. And I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the gray sheet. I write my meals down. I'm sorry, my husband's just coming out to get the dog. But he can't see you guys. I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from the gray sheet. I write my meals down. I commit them to my sponsor. I don't eat in between my meals, no matter what. I do eat my gray sheet meals, no matter what. And my abstinence is by far the most important thing in my life, with exception. And I am putting it first. And being on this meeting when I really want to walk and I need to grocery shop, and I'm like, okay, well, grocery shopping is a priority, but the meetings give me power and strength to go grocery shopping, right? And to deal with the grocery store. My abstinence date is May 16th, 2025. And this is, I believe, the second time I'm qualifying, or maybe the third time. Um, and I'll just try to, you know, there's a lot. So I found GreySheet in 2012. I've always struggled with food, and I've been in another 12-step program. A GreySheeter who has moved to Europe carried the message to an AA meeting, and I was ready. I tried many things that we've all tried, and including like pills, all the way to overexercise, right? And then that led to unmanageability in other areas, like the worst. Um, I was always obsessed with how I looked and my body and getting love, and I couldn't stop eating. Or I would starve myself and then start eating again. So in 2012, when I heard the message in an AA meeting, I ran up to the gray sheeter, and then I weighed and measured my first. I don't know if we're allowed to say salad, but I didn't know what I was doing. It was a big thing. And instead of calling her, right, and saying, this is crazy, or I can't eat this, or whatever, I was like, oh, I'm not ready to live without my drug. I can't live without sugar. So this is not going to work. And then I had 6 years of sobriety, and then I saw her again in a meeting, and I didn't say anything this time. Then I looked up the website, and I was so grateful we had a website. And back then, I don't know if it's this way now, they had qualifications on there. And I listened to every single one. I read everything I could. And it just so happened that week that there was a meeting in my neighborhood. And I showed up at the meeting, and there was no one else but that one gray sheeter who had carried the message in AA about gray sheet. And I'll just say what she said to me that was so profound. She said, I weigh and measure my food. I'm a food addict, and an alcoholic. And she said, I didn't realize how angry I was until I put the food down, and I was not having 6 years sobriety. I did not have the peace that I saw in other people. And then she said, and now for the past 10 years, or she said, I have the same size clothes in my closet. I was like, whoa, because every year it was going to be, are we a 4? Are we a 14? Are we a 24? What are we? And I couldn't keep the weight off, like they say, like a New York minute. And if you saw me, you just never knew. And then depression always went hand in hand with the food. So at that meeting, she shared her story. And that night I got a scale. I committed my food. She told me make 3 outreach calls, make my food delicious, go to a retreat, do whatever it takes. And I took off, right? And my life radically changed overnight. I mean, it's just as radical as 1 minute I'm doing drugs and the next minute I'm not. That radical change. And everyone in my life was like, what are you doing? And I had to go through that learning curve of not people pleasing, knowing what my truth was, telling AA people who didn't have a food problem when they're like, just have one, or this is crazy, or, they're not in the meetings. I had to deal with it. I had to let people go who didn't support my abstinence. I lost all my weight. Well, I went down to 140. I'm 5'1". I love stats. Right now, apparently I'm 168. And my highest that I knew was like 220, but it was even more than that. So I got down to 140, and then I made some changes with my food. I got down to 120. And so then for the first time in my adult life, I was like thin and was pretty stable there. Then I started going back up, and so in that abstinence, I traveled on airplane by myself for the first time as an adult without my family, and went to the Malibu retreat every year. I got involved in my home group. I got involved in the Dallas group. I went to the Dallas retreat. I finished school. I started a profession. I felt things I had never felt. I went to therapy. I mean, I needed therapy so bad. I would fire AA sponsors who told me that I needed like medication or therapy, or like kind of hinted at it. And I just like everything I'd been stuffing came up. And so that was really profound to go to therapy twice a week and deal with all the stuff I had not dealt with, which was like, for me, was a major trauma and stuff. I got very close to GreySheeters because of those outreach calls. I made more than 3 calls. I learned everything the hard way because of like ADHD and executive functioning, and I'm neurodivergent. I think a lot of us are, but um, it was very, very, very challenging for me to organize my food, to have enough food, to weigh and measure it, to not make a mistake. Um, so, but it was the most amazing thing, like as an adult to it's almost like Halloween time. And I remember like the first time I put on this like costume and I felt pretty, like I wasn't skinny and I wasn't this and that. I just felt like I could, the inside and outside were matching. Like I didn't have to have this wall up. I didn't have to, I could just be freer, it was like easier to be me and easier to make mistakes. I have this friend in Grace, she always says, the thing about abstinence is it takes away this level of self-hatred that's already there. If I have my abstinence and that's my floor, that's one less thing I can beat myself up over, and for whatever reason, I'm not going to analyze it. It makes my life better when I'm like, okay, all this is happening, but at least I didn't eat. All this is happening, but I didn't have to go up in my jean size, right? That level of shame, hiding, and for me, food addiction is very expensive. It was much more expensive than my drug addiction. Eating out here, which is equivalent to my bars, um, 50, $100. Every binge was $50, easily 30 to 50. And that's like a bag of something, that would last a day in my addiction, my drug addiction. So I did the whole, so what ended up happening is all this beautiful stuff happened, like miracles. Everybody in AA came around. They're like, oh, you're so different. My family came around. Like I was this transformed person. Then when I got down to a lower weight, um, and I was kind of, I wouldn't say dieting on the gray sheet, but maybe, kind of, yes. And then I started eating really heavy on the gray sheet and I gained 20 pounds in abstinence. Now, this happens, I've heard it happen for many people for a variety of reasons. They gain weight in abstinence, right? Whether it's the way they're eating or medication or whatever. The big message we have here is we don't eat no matter what, right? And my sponsor said, what you're eating is legal. Yes, it's heavy. So what? It'll pass, right? Like many people I know who've stayed abstinent, it has passed for them. Get the bigger jeans and keep moving forward. But even though she's been right about everything, I could not hear her. And my son had a like fell apart in my eyes. Like, well, or I'm trying to, I was working the steps, I was in DA I was doing everything right. I didn't stop going to meetings, I didn't stop making calls, I didn't stop doing I did every single thing that, a good gray sheeter is supposed to do. Thank you. Thank you. So, but I remember sitting on the couch thinking, I did everything right. I tried to do everything right. And I failed because my son was suffering. That's how there was almost this, I had this idea that recovery was transactional. If I do this, I should get that. If I do all this stuff, then this, my life will be good. This would not have happened. That did not happen. And I remember very vividly, I was so hooked on these gray sheet foods. And I said, F it. I didn't make the call. And I said, well, if I'm going to be this much in bondage and so fat, which I wasn't fat, but in my head, I went out that night and I got something and I had no idea what I had opened and what Pandora's box. It's probably not even Pandora's box because I don't know the reference very well, but it was March, St. Patrick's Day, 4.5 years ago. I wrote it down in my journal and I did not know that I wouldn't be able to stop. I did not know I would gain 120 pounds. I did not know that my mental illness would be out of control, that I would want to leave my family, that my work life would blow up, that my home life would blow up, that my son would fall, like, couldn't. This was a person who didn't understand my abstinence. He's like, please begging me, please, 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 what are you doing, mom? You're going to die. You're going to die. Going in the middle of the night to alleyways, just like when my drug addiction, like telling my husband at 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm going out. He's like, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, where are you going? And I'm like, don't worry about it. Don't tell me what to do, going and spending money and eating in the car. stashing things in the bathroom to eat alone in the bathtub in the bathroom, going to the kitchen and putting food under my blanket and walking so they couldn't see me, trying to eat when they weren't home. And then it got to the point where I was eating their food, and then I couldn't hide it anymore. I was like, look, this is it. I can't do anymore. And my big rationale was to like, well, at least I'm not drinking, right? Like you wouldn't even like, hey, you don't even know what bad is, right? And that's not true because the consequences I was having was just as bad. Not being able to function, not being able to work, not being able to get up, take a shower, earn money. I mean, depression, suicidal. I even went and I was the whole time I've been making outreach calls and going to meetings and I couldn't get abstinent. And I was like, okay, maybe I need rehab. So I went to rehab, an eating disorder rehab where they weigh and measure, and they weigh and measure without exception. They, after a month, I was really gung ho gray sheet. And anyway, after that, they were like, we can't help you. You have a lot of trauma. It's just more than we can handle. So they asked me to leave after a month. And a lot of people stayed there for months. So I came home and it was just, I'd get hired at a job, fired or quit. I couldn't stop. And then basically what happened is May 16th, I had already paid for the Texas retreat and I was laying in my bed and I had started a medication to help me with this food stuff. And what would happen is I'd start a month before. I would go like all day without eating, and then I would buy the bags and boxes, and I could not put a leaf or anything healthy in my shopping cart or ordering anything. I'd get bags and boxes, and then I would lay in my room and open every bag and eat until I got sick. And it was still sugar. So I was like at this hopeless place of this is not working. I know gastric bypass is not going to work. I'm still eating this way. Yes, I'm losing weight. I was losing weight, but I wasn't healthy. And I knew that the minute everybody said, if you stop this medication, all the weight will come back unless you make a lifestyle change. And I just remember laying in the bed that day and I'm like, I'm not going to the retreat. I can't stop eating. And I just, prayed to my higher power, prayed, spoke to, I said, this is crazy. And I had thought about many, many times selling my house to go to a mental institution. I really, really, really wanted to be institutionalized. And I said, I can't live like this. And then the whole time my son and my husband would like stand in the doorway and just like look at me and like shake their head or avoid me. I mean, it was bad. And then I had like 5 GreySheeters start blowing up my phone and saying, just come to the retreat. I'm like, I'm not ready. I'm sad. Don't worry about me. And they're like, just throw yourself in the car. My food wasn't packed. My bag wasn't packed. And they're like, just come. So I went and I threw myself in the car. I didn't have any food with me. I had already eaten something. They're like, we have food here. Just get here. And I got there around like 8 o'clock and they had saved me vegetables, fat, and protein. And everybody hugged me. I looked like what a person looks like in that state of mind. They would not stop texting me and calling me to come. And that love, that unconditional love of seeing me at my bottom and also having seen me well. So I weighed and measured there that dinner and I've been abstinent since. That is a miracle. Um, I mean, I've had a sponsor who stuck with me, who told me every minute that you're not eating compulsively is a victory. Every meal that you weigh and measure is a victory. Every phone call, every meeting, just keep coming back. That love, that unconditional love, because she works for a program, is amazing. The friends that I've stuck with who have what I want, who I respect, who took my phone calls and they didn't shame me or judge me. And they would say, I love you no matter what. And I'm always your friend. Um, and so what has happened in these 3 months, well, more than a little bit over 3 months is, yeah, thank you 1 minute. I've lost weight, which I never thought could happen. I got a job, which I never thought could happen. And I feel safe. And I feel like my little girl inside me is going to be okay. I can take care of her and that I can also take care of my son. And I feel um, I have some semblance of sanity where just by not eating in between those meals, just by weighing and measuring, there's hope for my life. And I was completely, completely hopeless. And I'm 46. When I came in the program, I was in my 30s. So, and I would hear people in their 20s, young people getting abstinent, staying abstinent 30 years. So I really like when I hear people of different ages getting abstinent. So It's just, it's everything. And I've had to change my perspective on everything about my ambitions and wants, and everything is out of whack in my head, right? It's like, no, okay, you want to walk? No, well, do you have gray sheet food? That's my time. Thank you.